Kenny Brack was one of the biggest names in open-wheel racing in the early 2000s. He was consistently fighting for wins and was a kart champion. However, at Texas in 2003, Kenny's life was nearly cut short. His car flew into a catch fence, destroying his car completely. One of the most horrific crashes in Indycar should have ended his life, at the very least his racing career. Brack would not only survive, but his life would write the story of one of the greatest comebacks in racing history. Kenny Brack was born on March 21, 1966 in Sweden. He was introduced to racing at an early age in a very unconventional way. His father had him driving at age 6, wheeling his Volvo on the frozen lakes of Sweden. They walked miles in the snow to watch rally cars in nearby towns, and by age 13, Kenny would get behind the wheel of his first go-kart. Kenny was doing some part-time yard work for Nils Arne Johansson, a Formula 4 driver and 1977 champion. Instead of paying him money, Johansson gave Brack his first go-kart. Most kids he was competing against would race 30 or 40 races a year, but Brack could only afford to run 8 or 10 races a year, so he was definitely on the back foot. But 3 days after getting his driver's license, he spent every penny he had on getting his first Formula Ford car. It took 3 years, but Kenny won the Swedish Junior Formula Championship in 1986. Once again, Kenny didn't climb the ladder incredibly quickly, but he won races in Formula 3 and Formula Opel Lotus. In 1992, he made a step down to win the Renault Clip Cup Championship. He moved to the US and won the Barber Saab Pro Championship along with 6 more races. He also had a chance to test a Williams Formula 1 car. He impressed, but clearly wasn't ready to move to F1. He raced in F3000 for a couple of years and had many conversations with F1 teams. Kenny returned to the United States and accepted a deal to replace Jeff Ward for the last 7 races of the Indy Racing League season. Kenny was immediately fast, but only finished 2 of these races due to crashes and car failures. This was mainly due to the fact that he and his race engineer had 0 combined oval experience. He qualified very well, but often made mistakes. In the 2 races he finished 5th. He got a phone call over the off-season from AJ Foyt to race for him, so of course Kenny did. He had an okay-ish start to the season, but rattled off 3 straight wins mid-season to propel himself to the championship lead. The season was super short, the field was very competitive, and Kenny was super consistent. Along with his 3 wins, this was enough to make Brack the 1998 IRL champion. 1999 was a bit slower of a year with just 1 win, but that win was the Indy 500. I think that's a trade any driver would make. He was on course to win his 2nd straight championship until a wheel bearing failed with 25 laps to go in the final race at Texas while he was leading. This dropped him to 2nd in the points behind Greg Ray. Brack made the switch to kart the next season with Team Rahal. He nearly won the 2001 championship with 4 wins, but lacked consistency. After a move back to the Indy Racing League in 2003, staying with Bobby Rahal, Brack had his most miserable season in the IRL or kart. He only had 1 podium, up until the season finale at Texas. Kenny was on a miserable stretch of races after an okay start to the season. 18th, 19th, 19th, 5th, 21st, and 20th. He was trying to end the season on a high note, and it seemed he could do that after qualifying 7th. He was in a great position racing with Thomas Scheckter for a podium position with 13 laps to go, whenever this happened.
His cockpit right now inside helmet.
Big crash! Major incident. Kenny Brack getting way high up into the fence.
The 2 were racing hard whenever the pair collided. It looked like Brack moved slightly left and Scheckter moved slightly right at the exact same time. Regardless, both drivers headed towards the outside wall at more than 220 miles per hour. Kenny ramped over Thomas's car and headed straight for the catch fencing, which acted like a cheese grater and shredded his car into pieces. Debris flew across the track as Brack's cockpit spun like a torpedo down to the apron. The camera focused on the crash site, with Brack's wheel, engine, and bodywork stuck in the catch fence and spread along the backstretch. But they didn't show Brack's car. This just shows that the broadcast immediately feared the worst, and they didn't show his car until emergency crews completely surrounded it. After several pace laps, the race was called and ended 5 laps early. Later reports indicate that although disoriented, Brack was speaking with medical crews. He was airlifted to Parkland Hospital in Dallas for further evaluation. Here he was diagnosed with a broken sternum and femur, a shattered vertebrae in the spine, and 2 crushed ankles. That day he underwent surgery on his thighs and ankles, and later that week had surgery on his back. He was stable, but these were still life-threatening injuries. He was there for more than 2 weeks, before being transferred to a hospital in Indianapolis. There, he battled additional complications with a collapsed lung and a blood clot in the lung. Then he was transferred to a hospital in Columbus, Ohio. His last day in the hospital, his wife gave birth to their first child 3 floors below him. Brack was on the road to recovery, but he had escaped with his life. In addition to being horrifying, his impact registered at 214 Gs. Reportedly the highest G-force impact to have ever been survived by a human. To put it into perspective, according to NHTSA, a 75 G-force impact has a 50-50 survival rate. Further, for 0.05 seconds, Brack's body weighed 21,400 pounds. In 8 months, Kenny had made remarkable progress and tested at Richmond in June just to see how he felt. He felt surprisingly comfortable in the car, given his situation and the fact he was still on crutches and needed aid from his crew getting in and out of the car. But he physically couldn't keep up. However, next year at Indy, Kenny Brack would get one more chance to get behind the wheel. Buddy Rice was injured in practice after backing into the outside wall at a high speed, tearing a ligament in his neck. Buddy was the driver who replaced Brack at Rahal. So naturally, Bobby Rahal thought of Kenny when he discovered he needed a substitute driver. In qualifying, Kenny set the fastest lap in the entire field, but only started 23rd because he didn't lock himself into the field on day 1. He ran well to start the race, but unfortunately dropped out of the race on lap 72 due to a mechanical issue. He proved he still had the raw speed, but he didn't have the same physical strength. Mario Andretti and Paul Newman spoke to him after the race about a return to racing, but Brack had this to say years later. When I woke up that Monday, all I knew is how tired I was. I was finished. You work so hard towards a goal, and after you reach it, there is the letdown, and I couldn't hardly get out of bed. I thought about it for 3 months, and finally decided I didn't have it in me to find the extra sharpness I had before. I wouldn't do it just to be a part of it, only if I could still win. I'd had a good run. So it was, let's just put up the for sale board up on the lawn and move on. After hanging it up, Brack stayed close to racing, being a test driver occasionally and managing some drivers, including Swede Marcus Ericsson. He also remained active in a rock band he formed, called Brack. Additionally, he had a stretch in 2009 in the X Games, and even returned to his very first roots in racing rally cars. Not to mention, he still manages an investment company, so I think it's safe to say that it's all worked out pretty well for Kenny. 21 years ago, Kenny Brack survived one of the worst racing crashes ever seen. Despite his long road to recovery, he managed to return to IndyCar's biggest race at the Indianapolis 500. He returned to other forms of racing and remained active in the open wheel scene for years. It is really one of the craziest survival stories in racing. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe so you never miss a video. Anyway, that's all from me. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.